Welcome, everyone, to the Township of Old Bridge Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting, February 1st, 2024. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Old Bridge Township Zoning Board of Adjustment has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting, by prominently posting in the municipal complex an announcement giving the time, the date, the location, and the agenda of this meeting, mailing such announcement to the Home News Tribune, filing a copy of such announcement with the municipal clerk, and posting the agenda on the municipal website. Before we have a roll call this evening, for those who are here, I'm going to swear in a reappointed member whose term had expired. He's here tonight. Michael Victoria, I'd ask you to come up, stand next to the township attorney, please, and be sworn. Board attorney.
Board attorney.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Victoria, state your full name.
I, Michael Victoria,
You can raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same
and to the governments
and to the governments
established in the United States
established in the United States
and in this state,
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
and that I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
impartially,
and justly
perform all the duties of my position
perform all the duties of my position
of Zoning Board of Adjustment Alternate 2 member
of Zoning Board of Adjustment Alternate 2 member.
Alternate one.
Alternate one. Alternate 1.
Scratch that, alternate 1,
To the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Mike. Congratulations. Thank you, sir.
Can I get your signature?
Just sign. Michael was previously a alternate member, which was designated as alternate 2. His term expired, and he's been reappointed by council to another term as the alternate 1. If you follow us, Mr. Izzo, who's seated on my far left, your right, was an alternate member. He's full member now. So just for quick edification for those in the audience, there's 9 members of a zoning board, 7 full members, 2 alternates. 2 alternates vote only in the absence of the other members. So that's how the quasi-judicial body acts. The people that are sitting on this, other than the gentleman next to me and the 2 on the end, the 3 on the end, I should say, this is the board attorney who's representing us and keeps us out of trouble. All of these people are homeowners in the town, just like yourself, and volunteers that provide this, our time to take participation in the government to help, along with other boards, rec boards you might hear of, planning boards. Some of them have more professionals, but everyone here is a citizen of the community that sits as members. Having said that, could I have a roll call, please? Ms. Porcelli.
Sure. Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Here.
Mr. Izzo?
Here.
Mr. Scogno?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Here.
Chairman Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Victoria?
Here.
Mr. Singh? Mr. Cheney?
Here.
Ms. Savant? And myself, Ms. Porcelli.
Thank you. Jeffrey Cheney is sitting next to me. He's from the firm of Dasty and Associates. He's of counsel to the board this evening. One of the things I want to say, and I know there's a lot of you here, and I don't want you to waste your time if you aren't interested in the rest of the applications this evening. There's only one. If you're here on the matter called Vision Old Bridge, the location of that is 516 and Higgins Road. That matter's not going to be heard tonight. The applicant proposes, I'll read it into the record. It's 27-2023Z, Vision Old Bridge LLC. It's in the Town Center District, the TCD zone. It's block 12261, lot 64. The physical location is 3963 County Road 516. The application is for multifamily residential units requiring D variance. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing garden center and construct a single multifamily building consisting of 68 apartments, including 11 affordable housing units. The public hearing, that's tonight, for this application has been adjourned to May 2nd, 2024, without further notice. Without further notice means that if you were in the 200-foot zone, you're not going to get another mailer. All of these agendas, as I read earlier on the opening statement on a Public Meetings Act, are open to the public. You can find information on, as I said, the township's website. If you look up Township of Old Bridge, go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, you can find the agenda for each and every meeting. It's usually posted several weeks before the meeting itself. So there was some questions that I fielded earlier before the meeting started that they thought maybe the people could sneak in the meeting in the next month or two and not May 2nd, as I read. I'll defer to Mr. Cheney, who's of council, to explain how that cannot happen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you've said, it has to be noticed, and that has not occurred. So in that vein, there will be no public comment on that application this evening, out of both fairness to the residents and to the applicant themselves. So everyone feel free to stick around, but I don't want you sticking around hoping that something's going to be said on the application, because the application is not on the agenda tonight. It's put off the agenda, will not be discussed this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney, and as I said, rescheduled at the present time, May 2nd, 2024. All right, if you're here on that matter and you wish to leave, would you do so now? So I'm going to move on with the meeting. You won't be wasting your time. Feel free, everyone, if you'd like to stay and watch the zoning board meeting. We do have an application on this evening. I'm going to defer. This isn't a public portion, but, well, it,
Or do, because you said just to keep checking the website. So my question is, you said that you have to give notice. Can he reschedule it for March? And if we just don't happen to see it, he shows up? I don't know, I'm asking because I don't know really how it works.
If I may, we are booked until April. There is no room to fit that application in. That is correct. That is correct. There is a possibility when an applicant can ask for a special meeting if they want to be heard before. But to do so, they will have to renotice. They cannot proceed without sending a notice.
They decided to go for a special meeting.
That is correct. And with my communications with the applicant, I don't believe the intent is for them to ask for a special meeting. They need some time to work on some of the issues that were raised. So I don't believe they will come before May 2nd. But should there be a request for a special meeting, then it has to be renoticed. So you will be notified. Yes, that is correct.
that's Ms. Sawan, who's the township planner. Okay. Well, some people may not. Thank you, Ms. Sawan. Okay. We'll move forward. We have resolutions next on our agenda this evening. I have three of them. 58-2023Z, Ralph Edwards, it was a C variance. Mr. Cheney.
Yes, we have a resolution granting bulk variance relief to Ralph Edwards for 14 Jupiter Court, South Amboy, New Jersey, block 4000.16, lot 40. Mr. Edwards and, real quick, sorry, sought variance relief as a patio and fire pit to legitimize installation of a paver patio fire pit and enlarged shed, seeking side setbacks of 0.7 feet on the left side and 2 feet on the right side, where 3 feet is required, and 33% landscape area ratio, where 45% is permitted. I've further sought variance relief as to the shed for side setback of 1 foot on the right side, where 10 feet is required. testified that he's owned the property since 2004, and the improvements beautify the area and create space for the enjoyment of his family and replace a former deck. Further testified that he obtained a permit for the pavers, however, the contractor exceeded the scope of said permit, so he was legitimizing it. Further testified that the fire pit is wood burning and not gas and has no gas hookup. And that he had changed the dimensions of the shed to conform with the lot boundary, and they have no storage in their house because they lack a garage. No public comment was provided, and although it was offered, and the board determined that hardship existed regards to granted a C variance regarding the conditions on the lot, finding the granted variance will not be a detriment to the public good or substantially impair the intent of the zoning plan. Right, so that is the first 58-2023Z.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Board members, you've heard the application, the resolution. Will someone move that for memorialization, please?
Chevalier will move it.
Is there a second?
Second, Scogno.
Andrews has seconded. Mr. Victoria votes tonight. There's only 6 members, full members. Okay?
Yes.
You take the roll.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Izzo?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Victoria? Yes. Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. 65-2023Z, Marjorie Jodre, C variance. Mr. Cheney?
It's a resolution of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Old Bridge, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, granting bulk variance release to Marjorie Jodre for 34 Exeter Street, Old Bridge, New Jersey, block 15548, lot 138. Ms. Jodre testified, and her husband testified in support of an application proposing the construction of a covered porch on the front of their home. She specifically sought variance relief for front yard setbacks of 23.4 feet, where 25 feet is required. Ms. Jodre testified that they have owned the property since 1998. The proposed improvements beautify their home and will create a small covered sitting area for them to enjoy. The proposed improvement is of similar character of nearby properties and promotes uniformity within the neighborhood. No public comment was offered, or no public testimony was provided, rather, and the board finds that variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not be detrimental to the zoning plan or zoning ordinance. And further finds the granting of variance relief will further the purposes of the zoning and municipal land use law.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Board members, once again, someone move that for memorialization.
Izzo.
Andrews and who?
Second.
Second is Mr. Izzo. Roll call, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Izzo?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Victoria? Yes. Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. 74-2023Z, that's Mikhail Lieben, C variance. Mr. Cheney.
74-2023Z, resolution of the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the Township of Old Bridge, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, granting bulk variance relief to Mikhail and Liana Lieben, trustees for 11 Winchester Court, Matawan, block 12360, lot 26. Applicants testified in support of our application proposing the construction of a composite deck in the rear of their home. They sought variance relief for rear yard setbacks of 18 feet where 23 feet was required. They've owned the property since 1997, and the proposed improvement is part of a larger backyard renovation project seeking to beautify their home and backyard while providing immense entertainment to their children and grandchildren. Further, they're replacing an aged wooden deck of similar height. Zoning Officer Danny Holohan noted that the height of the rear deck determines the requisite setback, and the property is in the area of the R20 zone. However, the particular development in which the property lies is subject to the more stringent requirements of the R9 zone. Thus, typically, no variance relief would have been required in the R20 zone. Mr. Lieben further testified that he notified his homeowners association. However, they did not file an objection to the application. Zoning Officer Danny Holohan also noted that his shed lies 11.5 feet beyond the rear property line of the property, and Mr. Lieben agreed to remove the shed as a condition of any approval. It was subject to public comment. However, no testimony was offered. The board finds that hardship exists regarding to the current conditions of the lot, and finds that granting the variance will not be detriment to the public good or substantially impair the intent of the zoning plan and zoning ordinances, as the property falls within a highly restrictive zoning area.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Board members, someone want to move that for memorialization?
I'll move it. Stoner?
Is there a second? Izzo? Mr. Izzo seconds. Roll call, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Izzo?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Victoria?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. There was just two housekeeping items that I wanted to mention, I would have mentioned earlier. First, we are live on Channel 15 here in cable TV in the township, as well as YouTube Live. That broadcast will go on as long as we are here this evening, and we do end at 10:30. Also, if you have a cell phone, which I'm sure that everyone does, please silence it so it's not interrupting the meeting. And we appreciate that, your courtesy on that matter. Next, we'll move to the minutes, board members. We have one, that's minutes of January 18th, 2024 meeting. Hopefully, everyone has had a chance to review them. Absent any commentary, I'd ask someone to move them for approval and adoption.
Move it, Scogno.
Is there a second?
Chevalier?
Chevalier seconds. Roll call, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier?
Yes.
Mr. Izzo?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Victoria? Chairman Sullivan?
Yes. That brings us to a completeness waiver. We have one this evening. That's matter 54-2023Z, Conserva Irrigation. This is the low-density residential zone, R20, block 12301, lot 1, physical locations 4291 County Route 516, Oldbridge. This is for an office for an irrigation company, major preliminary and final site plan with C and D variances. Lawrence Sachs, representing the applicant. Mr. Sachs.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Lawrence Sachs on behalf of the applicant Conserva Irrigation, Block 12301, Lot 1. For the record, I am in receipt of Ms. Sawant's letter of February 1st, 2024, and she's recommended the granting of a number of waivers. There are still 5 or 6 items which we will have to provide in order to have it deemed complete, and we expect to do that very shortly.
All right, if you don't mind, I'm going to read that into the record. This is a memo dated February 1, 2024, reference to this matter, application 54-2023Z. It's authored by Venus Sawant, AIC PPP Administrative Officer. Subject property, also known as Block 12301, Lot 1, is located at 429 Old Bridge Mattawan Road in the low-medium-density residential R20 zone. The applicant is seeking a D1 use variance relief and major preliminary and final site plan approval to replace the existing dry cleaner with an office for an irrigation company. The site is presently fully developed and mostly impervious. Our office has reviewed the waiver request for the applicant for the following items. Item 37B, finished floor elevations of all buildings. Item 39A, profiles of proposed streets. Item 39B, profiles of all streets adjoining the project. Item 39C, plan of all pavement improvements. Item 39D, name of all streets. Item 39E, designation of whether streets are private or public. Item 40D, the limit of clearing and any areas to be protected or preserved. Item 42A, storm drainage facilities. Item 42C, water and sanitary sewer utility structures. Item 42E, soil erosion and sediment control. 42G, lighting facilities. And finally, 42H, mailboxes and other street furniture. Ms. Sawant continues. The applicant, Conserva Irrigation, proposes to replace the existing dry cleaner with an office use for an irrigation company. Offices are not permitted use in the R20 residential zone. Therefore, D1 use variance relief is required. The site is fully developed and therefore requests numerous waiver items. The applicant is proposing minor changes to the site that involve less than 5,000 square feet of site disturbance. Our office therefore recommends that all items listed above be waived. The applicant should be advised that the waiving of any completeness items does not constitute approval of any portion of the application, and that any information found to be necessary during the review process must be supplied. Ms. Sawant.
I don't have any further comments. I just want to remind the board that this application was scheduled for waivers prior to this one as well. It's just that we missed asking, the applicant had missed asking for waivers on this one. They are mostly construction details, but when there is nothing really proposed in terms of stormwater or drainage, there is no requirement to have construction details for the same. And a few of these items related to the streets, they're not proposing any new streets. So it's really not applicable. So I recommend that the board grant these waivers.
Thank you, Ms. Sawant. Board members, any questions? On my left? None?
No.
And to my right? No? Someone in favor of moving these waivers for approval?
Izzo? Seconds.
Mr. Rizzo, and second is Mr. Stoner. So have a roll call on that, please.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Chevalier? Yes. Mr. Izzo?
Yes.
Mr. Scogno?
Yes.
Mr. Stoner?
Yes.
Mr. Victoria?
Yes.
Chairman Sullivan?
Yes, thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. We'll see you shortly on this one. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our only application of the evening. You need a few minutes to set up? Do it on the fly?
You want to do it on the fly?
Yeah, do it on the,
I can start, I don't need to set any.
we know that. I'll read it into the record, how's that? That'll take some time. This is matter 52-2023Z, Extra Space Management. This is the zone is the Regional Commercial CR. Block 4185, Lot 1, physical locations 1001 US Highway 9 Old Bridge. This is a self-storage facility. Major preliminary final site plan with D variance. John Wisakala, representing the applicant. Sir.
Good evening, everyone. John Wichaskala on behalf of Extra Space Management, Inc. Pleasure to be here this evening. My client is the applicant and the operator of the existing Extra Space storage facility. It is located, as the chairman indicated, 1001 Route 9. Its affiliate entity is actually the owner of the property. Property is identified as Block 4185, Lot 1 on your tax map, and it is located in the township's CR Commercial Regional Zone District. A little bit about Extra Space. It is actually the second largest operator of self-storage facilities in the nation. It's been in the business since the late 1970s. They currently operate over 3,500 of these facilities around the country in 43 states, as well as the District of Columbia. And it is a company whose focus is on providing clean, safe, secure, and professionally managed self-storage facilities. Subject property, I see it is, something's up on the board. It is approximately 6.3 acres in size. It's currently developed with a 3-story, approximately 102,300 square foot climate-controlled self-storage building with associated improvements. My engineer will speak to the existing site, what's there, and the like. This existing facility was actually originally approved by this zoning board. I suspect not all the same people. It goes back to 1998 was the original approval. It was later amended in 2001. Project was constructed sometime shortly thereafter in the 2002 timeframe. It was originally a Storage USA, for anybody who may remember that. Extra Space acquired Storage USA, and with that, the property and the business and the operations in 2005. So they've actually been a member of your business community and operating here for probably about 18 years, 18 plus years now. We are before you tonight seeking preliminary and final major site plan approval with variance relief to permit the development of a second climate-controlled self-storage building on the property. The new building proposed is 3 stories in height, and it's approximately 71,560 square feet. And one thing I do want to be clear on when we talk about climate, these climate-controlled buildings, this is not a refrigeration facility or a type of facility that would be intended to store, perishable items. These types of facilities, the existing and what's proposed here, What we do is we typically maintain a temperature, a minimum temperature in the winter months of 50 degrees, and a high temperature in the summer months of about 80 degrees. And why do I say that? It's not a type of facility, we do get questions about this, where people could be living in these self-storage units or operating businesses out of these self-storage units. In fact, those items, we do provide for it in our lease. It's prohibited. And our lease, standard lease prohibits, flammables, hazardous materials, and all that type of stuff. Self-storage is permitted as a conditional use in the CR zone district. Now, the reason we're before the zoning board as opposed to the planning board is we do not meet all the conditional use criteria that are established in your code. And as such, we have a D3 conditional use variance. We have additional D variance relief as to maximum floor area ratio, building height, and to the extent necessary, expansion of an existing non-conforming use. Again, this was approved. There's some nuances on the way the original approvals were granted. So, we're covering it in that regard as well. And we do have bulk variance relief, and, our engineer will go through that as well as our planner. As you are going to hear from our witnesses over the course of this hearing, one of the major advantages of this type of land use is that self-storage is one of the lowest impact land uses. And by that, I mean from the perspective of traffic generation, parking demand on municipal services and the like. It is far less impactful than many of the other uses that would otherwise be permitted in your CR zone district, which does allow for a broad brush of different commercial uses. We are very much cognizant of the fact we're located directly adjacent to a multifamily residential project. We have been for all these years. In terms of the land use itself, can't think of a better, if you're commercial abutting residential, can't think of a more appropriate land use or one that at least is compatible. And again, that's just due to the quiet nature and the low-intensity nature of the business. The design of this project, you'll see it shortly, has the building on the westerly side of the site, not directly adjacent to those residential apartment buildings. And I think actually the existing building, three-story building, will, for the most part, I think shield it. I wouldn't say entirely from view, but mostly. So we're excited to be here to present this application, an opportunity for Extra Space to expand its footprint here in Old Bridge, really without changing the nature of its operations. We have secured to date county planning board approval. We've got SCD approval. Your municipal utility authority is, withheld anything pending this board, but this is the most important approval of all of them. So we're glad to be here. I have 4 witnesses to present. Our project engineer, Matt Kunzman, from Bowler Engineering. He'll be providing an overview of the existing site, what we're proposing, what the improvements are. He'll touch on operations as well. Got Paul Going with Atlantic Traffic. He's our traffic engineer. He prepared a traffic impact statement that was submitted. He'll speak to that. Richard Bensavenga, he's our project architect with TAO Design Architecture. He'll go over building design layout, et cetera. And last but certainly not least, our project planner, Christine Cafone. And she's here to address the project as a whole and the variance relief we're seeking. And I would also note that we're joined as well by Clint Kleppe. He's a regional development manager and an asset strategist for Extra Space. And while I don't intend to call him for direct testimony, some questions come up along the way that we can't answer through the other professionals, he'll be available. So with that said, I'd like to call my first witness to be sworn, and I'll have him put his qualifications on and go through things.
Make sure his microphone.
Yep,
It's on.
just push the button. Sure. Green, you're good.
Board Attorney will swear you in.
Good evening. I state your full name.
Matthew Kunzman.
Do you solemnly swear it's the truth of the testimony for which you're about to provide?
Yes.
And just for the record, Matthew, can you spell your name?
Sure. My last name is spelled Kunsman.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kunzman, can you please provide the board with a brief summary of your educational and professional background and licenses you hold?
Sure. So I have a bachelor's in science in civil engineering from Syracuse University. I'm a project manager at Bowler Engineering, located at 30 Independence Boulevard in Warren, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is in good standing. And I've also been accepted as an expert witness by various planning and zoning boards in the state.
We'll certainly accept Mr. Kunzman.
Thank you.
Would you be able to zoom out just a little bit? Thank you.
And Mr. Kunzman, as we go through things, if you could just, if anything we're looking at on the board is a new exhibit, color rendered, et cetera, I'm not sure if they all are, as you go through, just make note of it, because we need to start marking them as exhibits. And the first one we'll start with will be Exhibit A1 when you get to it. And when you get to that, you'll need to just describe it, give a date, and overview for the board.
Sure. So this is the aerial exhibit. It's prepared by Bowler, dated February 1st, 2024. And north is to the right side of the page for your reference. So this exhibit shows the property and existing conditions. The site is outlined in red in the center of the page. The property is known as 1001 US Highway 9, Block 4001 or 85, Lot 1. And the property is located within the CR zone, regional commercial. And the total lot area is 6.31 acres. So the property is located on the southeast of Route 9 and the ramp. So you see along the curvature of the northern property line is the Route 9 ramp to the property, which is approximately 9 feet higher than the site. And there's also some additional screening and landscaping between the property and the Route 9 ramp as well. So surrounding the property to the north, which is to the right side of the page, is some commercial uses, along with the border between the Township of Old Bridge and also the Borough of Sayreville. Beyond that are additional commercial uses in Ernstine Road. To the east is to the bottom of the page is the AF zone with the Parkwood Village Apartments just beyond the property. And to the south, which is the left of the page, is the BJ's Wholesale and other commercial uses. And additionally to the west, again, is Route 9 and other commercial uses beyond that. So moving into the site, there is no direct access to Route 9 from our site. There are private driveways with Melita Way, which is labeled in the center of the page, that allow access to the site. So to access the site, you either come from the east near the apartments, which goes out to Ernstine Road, or through the BJ's shopping center as well, which would provide access to Route 9. Once you access the site consists of a 3-story self-storage building. The floor area is 34,105 square feet, so with a total gross floor area of 102,315 square feet. Under existing conditions, there is an FAR variance with 37.93%, where only 0.2 or 20% is permitted. Additionally, there is outdoor storage, which is on the northern side of the building, which is a permitted use in this zone. And within that outdoor storage, we also have 18 storage units along the northern side of that outdoor storage area as well. So with that outdoor storage units, we are also requesting as part of our application. They are set back 57.3 feet to the eastern property line, which does require a variance. And with all this existing improvements, there's also a lot coverage variance of 30%, or 52.4%, where only 30% is permitted. The subject area of our application really is the grass area located between Melita Way and the existing self-storage building. And there's also a billboard on the western tip of the property near the Route 9. It's 60 feet high and is permitted use as well.
Excuse me for 1 minute. Does anybody have a pointer?
I have one. Would you want me to point
For
to the
the
screen?
audience, yeah, why don't you just,
Hi.
Sure.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure how to
appreciate
do it with all these screens, which
Yeah,
one, and you have screens in front of you.
thank you.
Sorry, yeah, so there's a billboard located on the western portion of the property that I'm pointing to.
Where the build is going to be, would you circle that with the pointer?
Billboard?
Building.
No, the
Oh, building,
the
sorry. The building is,
Proposed building,
well, the
right.
proposed building will be in this area
Thanks,
here.
just so everybody has an idea where it's situated on the lot.
Sorry about that. Access to the site will remain in the proposed conditions relatively unchanged. I'll get to that on my next exhibit. But access to the building is this drive aisle along the western side from Melita Way. And you would turn in this area on the western side of the building where there's parking spaces available. And then there are a few security gates located in the northwest corner of this building and also the southwest corner of the building, which provides security for this outdoor storage, which will be maintained in the proposed conditions as well. Lastly, in the proposed conditions or existing conditions, there's a residential buffer requirement as well. 50 feet is required, where 22.5 feet is provided in existing and proposed conditions, so that will remain unchanged. And for stormwater management and grading purposes, the eastern side of the property slopes towards the western side of the property with approximately a 6-foot grade change. And there's no stormwater basins on the site in existing conditions. It's maintained with inlets and pipe conveyance. So with that, we'll move on to my second exhibit, A2. So this is a site plan exhibit prepared by Bowler, dated January 26, 2024. And again, north is to the right side of the page, same orientation as the last exhibit. So this exhibit is a colorized rendering of the site plan that was submitted as part of our application. We have made some modifications from our original site plan, which are shown on this exhibit, based on comments that we received from your professionals. So we are proposing a 3-story self-storage building located on the western portion of the lot that I'm circling. It's 24,177 square feet on the base floor, on the first floor, and it has a total gross floor area of 72,099 square feet. So with the total of both buildings, there's 174,414 square feet. The proposed building is set back 34.2 feet on the northwest corner of the building from the Route 9 property frontage. That does require a variance since 75 feet is required. But again, one thing to point out is, there is no access from this Route 9 ramp or jug handle area. And the ordinance, at least I believe, the intent is that the setback is more measured from the Route 9 main roadway and not necessarily the ramp. So that's why we're proposing the building 34.2 feet away from that property line. Additionally, there's a similar requirement for a minimum setback to major arterial frontage. It's the same idea that we're proposed 34.2 feet, where 75 feet is required. Again, that's to the ramp of Route 9, not necessarily the main arterial roadway of the Route 9. We are proposing increase of lot coverage to 62.12%, where 30% is permitted. We are utilizing, underutilized portion of the lot with the grass area. There's nothing there in existing additions, and we didn't want to locate the building on the northern side of the existing building where the outdoor storage is, because it is being utilized by, residents in the town for, RV parking and other, maybe boats or whatever larger vehicles they want to park here, and is permitted use. So with that, that's why we proposed the building on the western side of this property, along with separating it further from the residents to the eastern side as well. So that's why we're increasing the lot coverage, requesting a variance for that. Similarly, with the floor area ratio, we are requesting a variance as well, where 20% is permitted, and we're proposing 64.15%. And with the self-storage, which our traffic expert will testify to, it's a less intensive use than, say, an office or other commercial uses. So that's why we're requesting the floor area ratio variance as well. And we're also proposing a 3-story building similar to what's out there today. Existing buildings, 3 stories as well. But we are requesting a building height variance of 40 feet proposed. And again, it's on the western side of the property. The site slopes down from the east to the west. So relative to the existing building, it would be a similar height. So moving on. For the billboard located on the western port, we're not making modifications to that billboard, but we are providing access in the landscape area for them to be able to maintain, change the sign at their frequency.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, and I've been remiss. You don't have a court stenographer here.
Correct.
Why is that? We require one. And my fault, I should have picked up on that.
So I thought we had called and we were told we did not need a court reporter for this.
The rules require one, but
No, I just said that we don't supply one.
how are you going to have a record?
Taped, I thought.
Well, can you bring that up to the Superior Court if you needed it? I mean, I don't know, but I think we need a court reporter, and I'm very sorry that I didn't pick up on this earlier. I should have checked. We'll take a quick recess, please. All right, I'm sorry, we took a brief recess to check on a legal matter. I'm going to ask for a roll call, please, Ms.
Certainly.
Porcelli.
Ms. Andrews? Yes. Ms. Chevalier? Yes. Mr. Izzo?
Yes, here.
Mr. Scogno?
Here.
Mr. Stoner?
Present.
Mr. Victoria?
Here.
Chairman Sullivan?
Here. We were working on matter 52-2023Z, that's Extra Space Management, located at 1001 US Highway 9, Old Bridge. A matter came up to my attention, and I was remiss, and I apologize for it, that I thought I had a stenographer here, and I looked back over, and there is none. That was part of our rules and regulations, but I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Wicascala, to put on the record, and I'm sure Ms. Sawant and counsel for the board will speak.
Sure, Chairman. Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to speak with counsel during the break. This is being taped via YouTube, et cetera. So we will have a transcript prepared based off of that, and we'll make that transcript available to the board for further review and review before you take a formal action on same.
Right, so there'll be no formal action at all this evening, regardless whether you finish or not, right?
Right.
Ms. Sawant?
I'm okay with it. We have done it in the past on an application with the planning board as well.
Okay, it is unusual, and once again, I apologize. Mr. Cheney?
Yeah, I mean, but two of you essentially summed it up. I don't want to, reinvent the wheel here, but yeah. So no formal action tonight. Once you have that transcript ordered, we'll have a chance to review it, make sure everything's clear, and then we'll go from there. But everything else will testimony, et cetera, will proceed accordingly tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. Everybody on the board okay with that?
Questions?
I appreciate it, everybody.
Just before we start, Jacob, can you make sure if there is any technical glitch to let us know right away so that everything is being recorded? Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Just to be on the safe side.
I'll go back to you, Mr. Wicascala. You can
Okay,
continue.
thank you. And I'll turn it back over to Mr. Kunzman, who's somewhere.
All right, so I was about to describe the access to the site. So similar to how the site's accessed in existing conditions, we'll be maintaining that. So to access the self-storage facility, the new building, you would enter on Melita Way, either direction, come down east to the site, and then there's some parking spaces located between the two buildings. So you can either go into the office, which is located on the eastern building, the existing building, and then rent a new space, or you would access your new storage unit as well. There are two loading areas for the new building. So they're 20 feet wide by 20 feet in depth, which requires a variance because of the size, where 10 feet is required, 10 feet wide is required, and 60 feet long. But with these types of facilities, we're expecting people to drop off their household goods, or maybe it's a contractor or something like that that would store their goods. So they would have smaller vehicles, such as a truck, a car, or a small van, or something like that. If they did have a larger vehicle, such as like a box truck, or maybe even a larger vehicle as well, similar to how the site operates today, they can maneuver around the site, which they are currently doing, and without prohibiting other people from utilizing the facility as well. For parking, we are proposing a total of 25 parking spaces. This does require a variance due to the number. 154 spaces are required for the proposed new building and the existing building. So there will be approximately 849 total proposed new units or storage units in the new building. There's 849 units in the existing building and 652 units in the new building. And additionally, there's 18 units.
Matt, can you just
Located.
point out where the parking is so the board understands
Sure.
where that lays out?
So I'm circling the parking. It's in between the proposed building and the existing building. So there are 25 parking spaces located between the two buildings. There are additionally other parking spaces and larger spaces as well that are striped, located within the fenced area in the outdoor storage area, but those are rentable spaces, so they don't count towards our parking count. But you,
And I know we're going to hear more from our traffic engineer, Mr. Kunzman, but your office does designs of these self-storage facilities, and do you believe that's an ample amount of parking for the existing and new proposed building?
yes, it is.
Okay.
We do have 2 ADA parking spaces as well to meet the ADA requirements for this facility.
Can you just point those out? Just
Located here. So with all this, just going back to the lot coverage, we are requesting a lot coverage variance, but with this, all these improvements we're proposing, we are not providing any adverse impact for stormwater purposes. We are a major development. However, we are proposing an above-ground infiltration basin located in the western portion of the property, which takes the water that from the pavement areas and also infiltrates it, so it recharges the groundwater, and then also reduces the rate of runoff as well, while providing higher water quality. So with that, we are not proposing any adverse impacts with the lot coverage or in the increase in floor area ratio. All right, moving on to utilities, we do have all new utility connections for the new building, new sanitary, water connections. We have made an application to the OBMUA. They are deferring their review until we have a motion from this board. But we have made an application to them, and we also have gas and electric connections as well. We're not proposing a generator for the existing building or the new building for the site. It's part of Extra Space Storage's operations throughout. They operate throughout the country, and they rarely have generators or need them for their facilities. Moving on to lighting, we are proposing LED wall pack fixtures for the new buildings along all 4 sides. We are requesting a variance for the minimum in a pavement area does not meet the 1/3 average of the lighting requirements. So 1.4 foot candles is the 1/3 average, and we're proposing 0.7 foot candles within some of the parking areas and the drive aisles. With that, though, we are still providing adequate lighting levels that meet the IES standards. Therefore, it provides safe lighting for the site. All right, so moving into landscaping, and I also forgot to mention about the Melita Way realignment. So Melita Way, which is along the the western side of the site, as part of the comments that we received from the township professionals, we are realigning it slightly to provide more separation from the proposed building, providing at least 5 feet along this northwest elevation, also this western elevation as well. That way there's more room for traffic and provides a little bit more buffer. And within that area, we do have landscaping proposed as well. And then along, if you're able to scroll to the bottom of the page, please. Sure. Thank you. For landscaping, the revision we made to this plan was we added 11 new evergreen trees along the eastern property line. So to provide additional screening in some of the areas that have holes in the existing screening between the residential properties or the condos or, yeah, apartments, condos, to, our outdoor storage area. So those consist of evergreen trees. They can grow 1 to 2 feet, 3 feet, depending on the species, a year, and provide a nice screening for those neighbors as well. With that, though, we are proposing as a total package, a total of 241 plantings for the property. So, a significant increase from what's out there in existing conditions today. And it is a compliant landscaping plan as well, besides the existing nonconformity of the buffer requirement, the distance. But with that, we are providing additional landscaping in that area, even though we're not providing any impact to the eastern property line as well. So with that, I think that's everything I had.
Can you speak to business operations? Are they going to be changing as a result, hours of operation?
There will be no changes to the hours of operation. The hours of operation are to access the site 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So anyone can access the site that has a current renter of the facility. And then for the office, it's 9:30 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday, it's 9 to 5:30 p.m. and Sunday they're closed. So if you're a new tenant or you want to rent a unit, those are the office hours you have to go rent a new unit.
And number of employees, is that going to increase? What's the total employee count?
There are 2 employees and there won't be an increase.
Now, trash, that's all handled by way of private waste hauler, correct?
That's correct. And people that are renting this facility, they can't just empty their unit or storage unit. They have to bring it with them. And that's a part of their lease agreement as well. So the trash is mostly just for the office use and it's handled privately.
Thank you. You've had an opportunity to review the reports that have been received, is that correct?
That's correct.
And only because it's a little bit shorter, I'm going to just start with the report from the fire department. And I'd like you to address that and discussions you've had and resolutions you've made, if you would.
Sure. So we did receive a comment letter from the fire department, and we have met with the fire official, Mr. Miller, as well, and we have agreed to satisfy his comments, and he did actually provide us an email back saying that he's satisfied with our revisions that we will make.
Okay. So why don't we turn, Chairman, would you like us to roll through the report, or do you want to just ask questions on it? By and large, we agree with a lot of the technical comments. There are some items here that ask for testimony, which we've tried to cover along the way. I don't know if there's anything missing that you want to hear direct testimony on.
I'd just like you to say you're going to agree or not agree. If there's a difference, then we can come back to our professionals and
Perfect. So why don't we just roll?
see where you meet in the
Why
middle.
don't we just, we'll roll through and then I'll kind of lump couple of the pages. We agree with
Sounds good.
everything on here, there. So, what I'm going to do is just flip ahead to page 5 of 12, which is in general comments. And I can just represent to the board regarding the billboard. There is no change proposed in that regard. That billboard has been there for a long time. Outfront Media is the current owner and operator. They have a lease agreement. And as far as I know, actually, I heard from Outfront. They go and change the sign type on that. Sometimes once a month, sometimes every couple months, sometimes it's up a little bit longer than that. So nothing's changing in that regard. I think two is, I think, has already been testified to. We do think, and we'll speak more to the floor area ratio and so forth as we go through. We've already touched on 3 and our reason for placing the building in that location. Item 4 speaks about granting an easement, and we do not have an issue granting an easement as long as we have the cooperation of our neighbor in that regard. So 4, we're in agreement on as a condition. 5 is just a statement. Item 6, those outdoor storage units, there was a comment. What's the history on that, history of approval? I can represent to the board, hat in hand here, there is no history of the approval. Those popped up sometime years past. They contain lockers that, customers are renting. So we would like to keep them as part of this application. That's why we noticed for that as well. Number 7, we'll just clarify that the traffic impact statement had some different numbers, slightly different numbers on it, and Mr. Going's going to speak to that. Number 8, we already spoke to hours of operation. Number 9, I think Mr. Kunzman touched on already, mostly cars and stuff. A larger truck would be an SW30 typically, is that correct?
Correct.
And I will tell the board, I've been through this before, we'll never say never on tractor, or, like the larger moving trucks. They do not typically frequent these places, but it's not something that doesn't happen. It's not something we prevent either, and the site is sufficient to cover it. Number 10 is, spoke to climate control, and I did speak to that, and Mr. Kunzman mentioned that we're not going to have a backup generator. We don't need it. Item 11, testimony on restrictions. We have our standard lease. I actually have copies of the lease, and I can mark that in as well. It's no different probably than most of the other professional self-storage operators. Prohibitions, as I indicated in my opening comments, flammables, hazardous, explosives, those types of things are all prohibited by our lease. Security measures, can you speak to that, Matt?
Sure. So, in existing conditions and proposed conditions, it relatively stay unchanged. But there is a gate located where I'm pointing on the northern side in between both buildings. And there's also a gate located on the southern side of the existing building. And it's also fenced in, so the outdoor storage area is fenced in as well. So that's the security provided. And we're also going to extend the fence so it closes off the corner between the northeast corner of the proposed building and the existing gate.
Right. 13 to 16 speak to architecture, so we'll defer on those. Down in site layout, we agree with comment 17. Mr. Kunzman just spoke to number 18 in terms of gates, et cetera. Number 19, we agree there's a gap. We'll close the gap off, some gap in fencing. Number 20, Mr. Kunzman already spoke to the trash, the dumpster location. Maybe you can point that out for the board. That dumpster is not accessible to tenants. It's for office use only and use of the business.
Yes, so it's located in the northwest corner, right outside the office, which is what I'm circling in the corner of the building. And that dumpster is in the fenced-in area as well of the lot.
Number 21 speaks to the access to the building for loading and unloading activities. I think you touched on that, Matt, but can you just remind the board?
Sure, for the proposed new building, there are 2 areas. They have arrows on the eastern facade of the building. So I'm circling one here and then on the, southern side of that facade. So there are 2 loading areas that customers can utilize the facility.
Can you speak to truck turning, access, ability of fire vehicles and other vehicles to navigate the site?
Yes, so we provided a fire truck template to the fire official, which he agreed on circulation, and also Generally, we're not altering the site access, lost connection, but box trucks and other larger vehicles can circulate the site in existing and proposed conditions.
Number 23, we're going to just defer until we get to our traffic engineer. It speaks to volume and traffic on Miletta Way. Number 24, you already spoke to the shift with respect to the road, correct?
Yes.
We agree with comments 25 and 28, and we'll comply. 29, we agree with that comment. We have a 6-foot chain link fence provided, and we are going to modify that to go with a picket type of fence atop the basin wall so nobody can climb. It's really just for climbing purposes. And if you could speak to 30. Speaks to easements. We're okay with the temporary construction easement. And there is no easement that has restrictions that would prevent us from constructing stormwater pipes, et cetera, correct?
That's correct. We're connecting stormwater to existing network on site. And we already agreed to providing the easement on Melita Way where there is no easement provided in existing conditions.
Thank you. Grading and drainage, all comments 31 to 40 are acceptable, correct?
Yes.
In stormwater management, 41 to 44, those are all acceptable as well, correct?
Correct.
Landscaping and lighting, we agree with 45, 46, and 47, correct?
Yes, and one thing I just wanted to add for number 45, I forgot to testify to, we did add, per that comment, shrubs between the BJ's lot and our proposed building. So there are shrubs proposed in that area.
And that leaves traffic, which we'll defer on, and we agree, obviously, with the permits and approvals and any of the administrative comments. And with that, I have nothing further to ask Mr. Kunzman, Chairman.
Just to circle back there to the fire, kind of glanced over that.
Yeah,
Is there going to be an agreement with the fire marshal as to everything that he found unsatisfactory on 8/4/23?
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And I think there was a discussion, we received an email as well that we covered. He said he's good with the adjustments, just make sure we testify it to the board since they have to make the final approval. And I think you spoke to all of those. Do you want
If
to?
you want, I can.
Why don't you just clarify
Yeah, I thought he
again,
wanted
just
an
have it
extra
on the record?
hydrant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe we could just address each of those for the record.
Sure, so additional hydrants added, will be added to the plan, which is close, within 100 feet of the FDC, Fire Department connection, so we'll provide that. The fire lane striping, so we will provide fire lane striping at his direction. We will provide a key box as well. Emergency radio communications, so after the building is constructed, there will be a test post-construction to see if there needs to be a signal booster, and we will provide if needed. And we are providing access for the emergency vehicle as well through Melita Way. And he also wanted clarification on the refuse container for the garbage, which we provided.
Okay. He was here, I believe, and I guess had to leave?
Yes.
Okay.
I was privy to all the communications between the applicant and the fire chief, and yes, the recommendations made by the applicant are acceptable to Mr. Miller.
I just wanted to represent him in his absence, and if there's any further comments that go down the line, you cooperate with him as well, correct?
Yep,
Okay. You're done direct here, so.
Correct.
Is it Mr. McCarthy? I'm sorry, Ryan Garrity, correct?
Ryan McCarthy. I think,
Can't read my own writing, that's pretty bad, isn't it?
one second.
It is McCarthy.
So, I just want to make sure. I think we missed two items, actually. It looked like there was, for the security for the site, it's not pulled up anymore, but there was one section of fence that was missing as far as accessing the
we'll
parking
close the
area.
gap in that area.
Okay.
Yep,
And then there was one other item that we had previously talked about just before the meeting. The plan showed just some sheet flow from the parking area that's going to go directly into the basin. So we just wanted to make sure that something was added to the O&M manual to talk about how we're going to manage trash, any sediment and debris, just to make sure that the basin works in the future. So that was just one of the other things that we.
Sure, we'll provide additional info on that.
Mr. Tetra, anything from you now, or are you going to wait for the traffic engineer?
Yeah, I don't think there's any, I wait for the traffic engineer.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sawant?
So, Matt, when we had a meeting, a prep meeting before this one, I had pointed out that there's an area along the northern boundary line where the brush was removed and trucks were being parked there, and that you guys would go back and replant. Actually, that area, for the board's understanding, where you see Milletta Drive written vertically, the area to the north, right? You see the plantation brushes being removed. That area was used as a staging area at some point. So I have requested, since there is an LAR variance that is involved, and also this property is like a gateway entrance to the township, I would want to see, because there are bigger plans for the entire area in future, and I'll fill you in with it. I just want to give Chris a chance to come and testify, and then I can chime in. But I think that landscaping is critical. So wherever you can add landscaping to beautify the site or make it look nicer, we appreciate that. So do you have a problem with working with me at the compliance review stage to fix any landscaping issues that may exist?
We will work with you.
whether it's there or anywhere else, you know.
Sure. With Milletta, I believe you agreed to mill and pave, right? Because there are cracks in the roadway, and Milletta Drive is in poor condition in certain sections.
Yes.
That is correct, right? I think landscaping was my primary concern. Milletta Drive was another one. I'll hold off for the variances. I think I'm good.
Good, thank you. I was curious about the end of that Milletta Way, too. It's like no man's land when you get out to the, I didn't break an axle yesterday when I drove through there, but
Yeah,
I think it
close.
can happen.
Yeah.
Who owns that?
So Melita Way is a private drive. I believe to the east, there's an easement that allows, cross access for all the developments. So it's all private. But once you get beyond, really to the east of our site, then it's like a transition to Sayreville as well. So jumping
So,
this whole boundary.
Chairman and board members, if you look at the memo, the review memo, page 7, there was a reason why I included that tax map sheet, because the easement stops at the property line, the southern property line. And I myself, 10, 15 years ago, I have used that cut through to go to BJ's, and I know it is in bad shape. And that was my first question: who maintains it, and how do people? Because everybody gets to BJ's through that parking lot, and so we had discussions, and we were like, we need a cross-access easement, and the roadway needs to be maintained uh, in a better shape. But I'm hoping that with future development coming in that area, things will get better and there'll be better connectivity.
Well, everyone goes that road to BJ's except me, because I didn't find out that it connected until yesterday when I drove through there. So now I would go all the way down to Downing and come around.
Right.
But thank you for that, and and I found out I can cut through there. Is it, it's in such poor shape, is there going to be, you mentioned curbing, I guess that's closer back to where the
For the
end of
rear
the parking lot,
entrances.
Matt, why don't you just show what the extent is,
Yeah.
what we're doing, and what Vina had spoken about in terms of milling, repaving, et cetera?
Sure, so the milling, or the full depth pavement, maybe if we can zoom in, it might be easier to see, on like the top, yeah. So there's a darker gray hatch, so where my laser pointer is right now, that extent to the western side, we're providing new pavement. That's because we're realigning. So some of it may be milled and overlay where it overlaps the existing, but we're also shifting the road 5 feet. So that'll be new pavement. And then to the property lines, we'll provide the mill and overlay as needed.
So Matt, what about the other side?
Sure, to the
So,
The northern
Maureen, can you
side.
just pan the screen so that we can see the bottom? No, the other way.
going to the northern side of the property, there's, we'll provide the milling and overlay as needed. But again, it does end at the property line. I don't believe we have, you know, we can't pave beyond.
Right.
I
we
think
can
till
pave
the property line is what we expect.
Yeah.
How did those big vehicles that I guess motor coaches and that rent spots back there, they access that to the back?
Sure, there's only one access to the facility, really. It's
Right.
through this drive aisle on the southern side. So there's 2 gates, whether to access the back or the outdoor storage, but we have run truck templates going both ways. Depending on the vehicle size, they can make those maneuvers. Most likely, though, I would assume the larger vehicles are coming from the Pathmark side, or not Pathmark, BJ's side.
Doesn't look like a lot of them move at all, or very infrequently.
Almost like the stuff that's in each one of the cubicles within the facility
Understood.
as well, once somebody puts it in there.
That's understood. Let me go to the board members. As to the engineer, questions on my left. Start down at the end, Mr. Victoria.
I do have a few, just on the numbers on the lot coverage variance that you're applying for.
Sure.
The current building, you said, is 102 square feet, 102,000 square feet, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so that represents 37.1% coverage.
Sorry, just flipping to my table. So for lot coverage,
We have FAR, so we'll start with coverage, and then we'll clarify the FAR as well.
Sounds good.
so the lot coverage, that's just impervious area for the site. The permitted is 30%. In existing conditions, it's 52.14%, and then proposed, it's 62.12%.
What is the total square footage? Because I have 274,863.6 square feet. Is that accurate?
I have in acres, so let me do a conversion.
Well, that's 6.31 acres times 43,560, which is,
For lot
square
coverage, I
feet,
have
right.
3.92 acres.
3.92. I thought you said 6.31.
Total. That's total lot area.
Okay. Because I had the coverage at 37.1, and you're saying 62 is
So,
percent is in
Mr. Victoria, maybe I'll try to help you. I think you're looking at the building footprint, right? What Matt is talking about is the lot coverage, which is inclusive of the parking areas and any paved areas too. So it's not just the building footprint, it's the full building footprint plus the paved areas, and that is what is 62%.
Right, but just the building footprint, I'm getting 63.1. I'm not even taking into account the,
Are you looking at, I'm just guessing because I can't see your calculation. Are you looking at the entire square footage of the building or just the footprint?
well, 102,000 square feet is the proposed building.
That's the gross floor area.
I mean, is the current building.
That's existing, that's total with the existing 3 stories, so the
But the
footprint.
building footprint is much less than the total square footage.
The building, just to clarify, the existing building footprint is 34,105 square feet. The proposed building footprint is 24,177 square feet. So with that total, it's 58,282 square feet.
That's the footprint.
Correct.
Yeah, 58,282. Okay. And then the site, you said it's not 6.31, it's 3 point,
The site is 6.31 acres, so 274,974 square feet.
okay, so with the new building, the proposed coverage is how much, what percent?
Approximately 21.2%.
The total, it's 62%, you said, right? So that's a little more than double what the standard is? Is that fair to say?
For lot coverage, impervious coverage, yes, it is double, but again, we are providing stormwater mitigation. So there is a detriment for stormwater purposes for the site.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding the numbers correctly. Thank you.
Mr. Rizzo? Mr. Stoner? Mr. Scogno?
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah, can you turn your mic on? Sure. Gentleman was asking, yeah, 2 employees that man the office operation, that's not going to change. We don't actually need more employees for this purpose.
So they'll be working at complete hours of,
So the way it works, so our customers have key code access into the building or to their units between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. That's what exists today, and that would continue if the board were inclined to grant it with respect to this other building. Our staff is there, and I forget, 9:30 to 5:30, Mondays to Fridays.
9:30 to 6 on Monday through Friday, and then 9 to 5:30 on Saturday. And Sunday, they're not there.
and no security. That's the employees are the security.
Well, they're not really there for security. The employees are there during the week to, well, meet new tenants, work it out. I mean, they obviously walk the facility, they keep an eye on things when they're there, but our customers do have access to come in, and within that hour, they cannot get into their units. Everything shuts down from 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. To 6 o'clock a.m., 5:59 a.m., so, yeah.
And the employees get a lunch hour, and they leave the premise.
I don't know if they leave, but they may run out to lunch. They stagger their lunches, so during those hours, we'll always have somebody there. We don't
Always
wanna
have
miss-
somebody
We don't want to miss an opportunity during those hours that the office is open. if we have new customers that are coming in to sign up or change, maybe change units or whatever else they may need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chevalier? Not at this time. Roseanne?
Yeah,
Ms. Andrews?
no security cameras after 10 PM? 24 hours?
I'll answer that since hasn't been sworn
Right.
in, but I
Thank you.
can repeat. We do have 24-hour security. We've got a number of cameras throughout the
Because it
facility.
seems like a desolate area after a certain amount of time.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to call our next witness, and Mr. Kunzman is not going anywhere, so.
I would normally take a break for the stenographer, but I don't see a
Well,
need tonight.
exactly, the fingers. See, it worked out perfectly, Chairman.
Exactly.
State your name.
Paul Going,
Paul
yes, and the last name is Going, just like the word going.
Going. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear as to the truth of the testimony for which you're about to provide?
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
thanks.
Mr. Gowen, can you please provide the board a summary of your educational, professional background and licenses you hold?
Sure. I'm a 1993 graduate of the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art, where I earned a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Civil Engineering. Since that time, I've been working as a traffic and transportation engineer. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey, licensed in good standing, and I've been accepted as a traffic expert at numerous boards throughout New Jersey, including here in Old Bridge.
He's good.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Going, you and your office prepared a traffic statement for this proposed expansion project, is that correct?
That's correct.
It's been submitted, I think it's dated June 26, 2023.
That is correct.
Why don't you please provide the board with your thoughts relative to traffic generation associated with this land use, as well as somewhere along the line, I want you to touch on parking.
Sure. So, as was previously testified to, the site's developed with an approximately 102 square foot extra space self-storage. Our report incorrectly identified the existing building area at 98,000 square feet, so about 4,000 square feet short, but it doesn't change our calculations or findings. The site's served by about 20 parking stalls right now. Those were in that area that's between the existing building and the proposed building. There's also, as Matt testified, there's outdoor storage of RVs and boats and things of that nature. The site does not have direct access to any public roads. The frontage we have along Route 9 is what the DOT calls a denial of access. We do not have access rights to Route 9. We do have access to and from Melita Way. It's a 20-mile-per-hour private road that runs through the site. Along our southern border, where the BJ's is, we have an easement that allows access along Melita Way to the intersection with Downing Street to the south. Downing Street is a public street, provides access to Route 9. Along our eastern border, we have an easement that allows access along Melita Way to its intersection with Westminster Boulevard. I think Matt had earlier said from Melita Way you get to Ernston, and that's true, but you have to take Westminster between Melita Way and Ernston. There's presently no easement on the subject property along Melita Way that allows shared access to any other party, and as was previously stated, we're proposing to add an easement to provide for that in the future. In the proposed condition, an additional building would be constructed, a 3-story, 72,099 square foot self-storage building. The parking would be increased to 25 parking stalls. Access would generally work the way it does today. The only change is the improvements that we're proposing to Melita Way and the easement we're proposing on Melita Way. Just in general, having the ability to Travel between properties off the main public roads is a general goal of access management. It reduces demand on those main roads and helps them operate more efficiently. It also reduces driveway turning movements onto those main roads, which contributes to safety. We don't need an approval from DOT for our project. We access Route 9 via Downing Street. Downing Street's a public road, so we would not affect an access permit on another property, and we don't need an access permit for our property. So as was previously stated, the use is a very low traffic generator. From a traffic point of view, self-storage has very low impact. We like to have this use because it does generate very few trips. We calculated the traffic that's generated in peak hours by the existing and proposed condition using a reference called the ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. And based on the ITE, using the square footage of the existing and proposed facilities, currently the existing site generates 9 weekday morning peak hour trips. That's 9 total entering and exiting. 15 weekday evening peak hour trips and 17 Saturday midday peak hour trips. The proposed new building would add an additional 6 weekday morning peak hour trips, 11 weekday evening peak hour trips, and 12 Saturday midday peak hour trips. So to put that in perspective, in the busiest peak hour, we're generating 12 additional trips, which is an average of 1 car entering or exiting every 5 minutes. In addition, for comparison purposes, the adjacent shopping center in BJ's generates about 329 weekday morning peak hour trips, 1,391 weekday evening peak hour trips, and 1,665 Saturday midday peak hour trips. And that's again using the ITE to calculate those trips. In addition, Route 9 carries about 6,000 cars per hour in the peak hours, in the weekday morning, the weekday evening. So based on the additional 12 trips generated by the project, our finding is that there's no increase, there's not a significant increase in traffic, and there's far fewer than 100 additional peak hour trips. The ITE and NJDOT consider a significant increase in traffic to be over 100 peak hour trips. So based on that those 12 additional trips, my conclusion is that the proposed project would not have an impact on area traffic. In the conditional use criteria, it requires a written report and it requires findings that the project will not result in a VC ratio of 0.8 or greater, will not increase peak hour volumes by 10%, and will not result in a level of service F. And in my opinion, traffic volumes this low, which are in fact less than the daily fluctuation you might find from a peak hour to a peak hour if you just counted today or yesterday. That my finding is that we would not trip those thresholds. I did, as I stated earlier, we had the wrong square footage for the existing building. I recalculated, and the numbers that I just gave you, which are the numbers in my report for trips, those are the same whether the building is 98,000 square feet or 102,000 square feet. So the addition of 4,000 square feet doesn't actually result in any additional trips. Moving on to parking. So the ordinance requires 1 stall for every 10 units and 2 stalls for employees, which for this site, I think Matt was giving these numbers. There's 867 existing units. There are up to 652 units in the proposed building. Our architect is going to testify. Right now, his layout doesn't include 652, but he thought that in the future, they could possibly change up the unit size.
Yeah, it's a market demand. You know, the most popular unit size is the 10 by 10. Sometimes we have people that want larger sizes, we kind of see, so we've got architectural plans that have a layout, and I think it's got a 500-something number. Rich will speak to it. But it's possible you can do, more smaller units within those areas. There is a certain amount of flexibility that is built into that, so we've taken the assumption of the most units, and I think ITE anyway is really just based on square footage as opposed to, how many lockers there are in a given area.
Yes, that's correct. So the parking requirement is for 154 stalls. And as you might guess, when the traffic demand for a use is very low, the parking demand is likewise low. If any members of the board have ever rented self-storage, you know what I'm talking about. I have. It's very unusual when I go for there to be more than one other customer at the site. So to get an idea of the actual parking demand we expect at this use, I used another publication of the ITE called Parking Generation. So per the ITE, the average maximum parking demand rate for self-storage is 0.1 stalls per 1,000 square feet. So that would be 17 stalls for the existing and proposed buildings. We're proposing 25 stalls, so that's more than enough to meet the demand for the use. And that completes my direct.
Thank you.
Mr. Tetrut, did I say it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yes. Responses sound good. The only comment I would have was just about the requirement for traffic impact for the immediate area. It doesn't really, so it almost, I don't have a problem with not doing a turning room count. I was just pointing out what was in the ordinance there. So, but the numbers are so low that it probably is not really, something that could be waived. Everything else, it looks like, you're going to revise the traffic report to
Correct.
make the corrections in there, and so I don't see any issues.
In short, you would agree with the testimony of
Yes.
Mr. Going?
Yes, it would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
I have no comments. I'll agree with.
Thanks.
Ms. Swan?
I have no comments.
Start over on my left again. For this witness, please.
On the, you said 154 spaces are required, correct?
Correct.
Proposing 25.
That's correct.
How many are currently there?
There are currently 20.
Okay. And then you said currently there's 9 existing peak hour trips, and you're adding 12 peak hour trips. Is that correct?
Hold on a second.
It was 15.
There's 9 in the weekday morning peak hour, which is the lowest of the 3 peak hours that I'm giving you numbers for. And then the 12 that we're adding, that's in the Saturday peak hour when,
Why don't you just go through, Paul? So just correct me if I'm wrong. So we've got 9 existing in the AM peak hour, 6 additional associated with the new use for a total of 15, correct?
Correct.
And then the PM PM, it's 15 existing, 11 additional trips. So in the PM peak hour, it's 26.
Correct.
And then the Saturday peak goes to 29. It's at 17 presently. You would have 12 more. What's that Saturday peak, by the way?
It's typically in the mid-afternoon, early afternoon.
So 29 total on the Saturday peak, correct?
Correct.
That's shown incidentally for any board members. It's in Table 1 on page 5 of the report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Rizzo?
Numbers are staggering. BJ's is going to make a toll for you to go through BJ.
Maybe so. Don't give him any ideas. Membership's high enough already.
I'm good.
Can't share that membership anymore.
No, that's true. Mr. Stoner?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned 6,000 cars, if I'm correct, on
Route
Bridge,
9.
right?
Yes.
How do you come to that conclusion, or how do you calculate that?
So what I did is I got information from NJDOT on their website. They have, so the DOT collects traffic data all over the state, mostly on state roads, but sometimes other roads, and then that information's available on their website. So that's based on a direct count of actual traffic.
Oh, so you guys didn't actually do it
We
yourself?
didn't do the counts ourselves, no. That's just background information that our traffic engineer secured from.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Scogno?
On top of
Ms.
that one,
Chevalier.
what year was this 6,000 count done?
I will tell you in just a second.
Yeah.
It's 2016.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Very light.
yeah. I know, I was on that road coming here. And it seemed like there were
Yeah,
10,000
so I
cars
wanted to
on
know
it
the
as I
year.
was driving.
Thank you.
Pretty busy. Ms. Andrews?
Yes, you mentioned that Melita Drive is a very bumpy, rocky road. Are you planning on fixing that road up?
Yes, we're going to fix it within our property boundaries and mill and repave some of the areas, Mr. Kunzman said, are just going to go full depth, but we're going to fix it, mill it, repave. It'll be a nice, smooth road.
And I believe there are no sidewalks or curbs in that area?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, that also going to be taken care of?
Well, we're not proposing any new sidewalks through there. We're just going to, pave the road.
Okay, just asking.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just a thought.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Mr. Cheney, you have anything? No?
Nothing on my end, thank you.
Okay. Another witness? Or do you
I
need,
do.
do you need a break?
I do not need a break,
Okay.
but if the
Does
board,
anybody on the
need-
board
if
need a
anybody
break?
on the board needs a break,
No?
no, I
Okay.
appreciate it. Okay.
Let's move forward. We do stop, Mr. Wicascala, at 10 for public portion. Now, no one's here tonight. If need be, I'll extend you a few minutes.
I appreciate that, Chairman.
You can set up. Oh, I'm sorry?
Where do you like?
We're good. We have the chairs that swivel up here, so we can go either way. Whatever's convenient for you. Thank you. We have a hand mic there for you, sir.
Just roll, why don't you just roll through them, Rich? Just mark them as you go.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Board Attorney will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear as the truth of the testimony for which you're about to provide?
I do.
And can you state your name for the record?
Richard Bencivenga, Bencivenga.
One more time, sorry.
Bencivenga. Can I approach?
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You were sworn, yeah. Can you please provide educational, professional background and licenses?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Architecture Technology from New York Institute of Technology. I graduated in 1989. I received my first licensure in New York State in 1994. My license in New Jersey's 2010. So license is valid.
It's current?
It is
and
current.
you're testifying as an architect?
I am testifying as an architect. I've testified in front of numerous boards in the state of New Jersey and has been accepted.
I know your name, sir. So I'll certainly accept your credentials.
Thank you.
Mr. Bencavaglia, you prepared the plans before the board, is that correct?
I have.
Looks like you have a board up there. As we go through, we're going to be picking up at Exhibit A3. Just mark it, put today's date on it, explain what it is, and you can roll.
So what I have here is a rendering of the proposed new building, and it's a view looking down Maleta Way towards Route 9. What you can see here is what we're proposing is a building that's going to be constructed of a combination of metal panels, concrete block, some glazing, some simulated stucco or EIFS, composing into different patterns and colors to provide a really visually interesting building. I'm going to run through them quick. We're proposing 2 signs on this facade, one here and one here, and that's facing the jug handle. This will be A4. This is a view as you enter the site from the BJ's property. And again, it's just showing the same combination of materials in different shades of gray. It's a horizontal, variated box rib panel, so we've got a combination of thicknesses as well as depth. And what it does is it gives a visual interest to the building. And what you see here are these are imitation doors, faux doors. We call them display doors. It's kind of to demonstrate and give a clue what the type of building is. And we're also proposing a sign on that facade and the facade that faces directly towards Route 9. This will be A5. Now this is a view of the interior courtyard of our complex. So this here is what the new building looks like as it faces opposing the existing. And you can see here we have 2 signs showing our customers where they're going to pull up and unload their items into the building. We're providing a small little canopy for rain shelter. And when a customer comes to the building, they'll come in, there's a keypad at each of these doors, and only if you are renting a unit in this building will you be able to access this building. The keypads are also monitored 24/7 by security cameras. That
concludes.
That concludes mine. Unless you want.
Safety features, et cetera, just touch on that.
Sure. The building will be fully sprinklered. It's a non-combustible building. We'll have 2 elevators, fully ADA compliant. We also pre-engineered the building for future solar, just in case the client decides to go forward with that.
And we were talking before, I was addressing it, but I can't provide testimony. The building does have a certain amount of flexibility just in terms of the number of units
Sure.
that are proposed to the interior. Is that correct?
So I'll pull up a floor plan. It's easier to demonstrate. This will be A6. This is our first floor plan. And what you can see, the self-storage buildings are designed on a 10 by 10 module. The 10 by 10 is, John stated, is the most popular unit size usually. However, the markets do tend to shift. So, and over time, Extra Space may decide that the 10 by 10 is not really the optimum size. It may be the market looking for 10 by 20s. So we could easily remove some of these walls between the units. We can move them. It's like a director said, it's a kit of parts.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Go to the professionals. Ms. Sawant, we'll start with you this time.
I just have one question. I know there was a comment in the review memo that you may require a variance for the sign. Since you have the floor plan up, can you show me which facade has the signs?
We have a
I
sign
believe, right
here.
there, and
here,
one each,
there's one here,
okay?
and there's one there. And then over the entrance, we have two wayfinding signs.
Those are wayfinding, right?
Yeah, they're like wayfinding signs, called loading.
I think the sign that is right there
I-
on the southerly side of the
Correct.
building will require a
Yeah,
variance.
and we actually noticed as well, we did include sign variances in the notice, and we'll address it.
So I believe, because that was a question in the memo, so should the board act favorably on the application, we should include the wall sign as a variance.
Thank you.
No problem. I have no further questions.
Mr. McCarthy?
No comments.
Mr. Tetra?
No comments.
Counselor?
Just for the record, just with obviously with how this is going to be handled for the transcript wise, you're talking for the western side, right? If we're looking, this is north, is this?
This is southerly side, actually.
Southerly side, sorry. So the southerly side will require variance. For the southerly side sign.
That is correct.
Going down to my left again. Mr. Victoria?
Is this building typical of extra space storage?
Of the hundreds of self-storage, this is very typical that I've designed.
I have to say, it's probably, for as far as self-storage spaces go, it's probably one of the most beautiful self-storage buildings I've ever seen.
Well, thank you. Extra Space does a good job.
Almost looks like something out of the Jetsons.
Now you're showing your age. Mr. Rizzo?
Oh, I'm not gonna say nothing after that.
Okay. Mr. Stoner?
You didn't mention anything about lighting. Is it well lit, the area?
So outside of the building, the civil engineer touched upon that there is lighting throughout the facility. Inside the building, it's well lit. It's all on motion sensors. So as you walk through the building, the lights will turn on and turn off. So,
Because in your pictures, I didn't see the lighting. That's the reason why I
there is
asked.
some lighting as shown.
And does it come with the landscaping too? That tree is here in the front
We
there?
try and model the landscaping per the landscaping design. So it's as close as we can. So you'll see we have lights here, 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 down the building. Then there's lights down this side of the building.
Okay, that's why I didn't see that.
And then you can see some more lights as well.
Now, is there timing on these lights? Like, for instance, it comes
That's a
on
good
at a certain
question.
time?
1 second. They're 24/7, aren't they? They're 24/7, the exterior lights.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scogno? Yes. Ms. Chevalier? This new building wouldn't mirror the present, but it would look very
Same colors.
right.
It's corporate
So
branded.
to the average person coming by, most
Probably
people
wouldn't see the
realize
difference.
after it's built that there was
They would
one,
just
now there's
realize,
two.
yeah, it's an extra space.
And the materials and all are basically the same?
On it,
The outside facade,
it's similar.
to both buildings?
Yeah, similar. Not entirely, but.
That's all. Got one more, right?
One more.
Thank you.
Hello.
You state your name for the record?
Certainly, it's Christine, Christine, Cofone, Cofone. Business address is 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 200, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701.
Ms. Cofone, do you solemnly swear it's the truth, the testimony for which you're about to provide?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I I know you've testified here before, but want a brief summary of your educational professional background.
Yes, good evening, Chair and members of the board. For the record, Christine Nazaro Cafone. I have testified here before. It's been a minute because I've not been here since the room has been renovated, so it looks lovely and it's nice to be here. I'm also happy the court reporter's not here, so I won't be admonished for talking fast like I always am. So I have been here as qualified as a witness in Old Bridge before both your planning and zoning boards on numerous occasions. I've been practicing as a licensed professional planner for about 28 years in the state now. I've been qualified before Old Bridge and over 450 or so other planning and zoning boards. I teach planning and zoning courses for the Rutgers Center for Government Services, and I also serve as a court-appointed affordable housing special master. Our firm, Cafone Consulting Group, is appointed as the Casino Redevelopment Authority planners in Atlantic City, but by and large, our practice is devoted to representing applicants before boards.
Ms. Cafone's name is very well known in before this zoning board. I don't think I've seen you since pre-COVID.
I don't think I've been
And I
here.
thought maybe you took it back to the office and you weren't coming out anymore. But we'll certainly accept her credentials. She's appeared and testified before
Thank you,
this on
Chairman.
numerous occasions.
Thank you, Chairman. You've heard a lot of testimony tonight, and Mr. Koonsman went through the variance relief that's required. It's also properly outlined in your planner. Ms. Sawant has reviewed all of the relief that's required. This is a bit of a complicated application with respect to a planning because we are seeking, we're going to put the proofs on for 4 separate D variances. So that's 4 of the 6, right? As a board, you know there's 6 D variances. We're going to hit testimony on 4 of them. We're asking for a D2 because a D2 expansion of a nonconforming use because the use was originally established by variance. Years ago, when it was first approved, it was a conditionally permitted use and it needed some variances, so it was originally established by a D variance. So we're asking for a D2 expansion of a nonconforming use because we're expanding it. We're asking for a D3 variance because we don't meet 5 of the conditional use standards. This is a conditionally permitted use in the zone, which means if you meet all the conditions, you go to the planning board as an as-of-right use. If you violate 1 or more, you go to the zoning board of adjustment for a D3 variance. We're asking for the D4 variance for the floor area ratio. Those numbers were already testified to by Mr. Koonsman, but the existing FAR is 0.3793 and 0.20 is allowable, and we're at 0.6415. And then we're asking for a D variance for height. The height requirement in the zone for the CR, the underlying zoning allows a height of 65 feet and 5 stories. However, the conditional use requirements restrict you to 40 feet. So we are asking for a D6 variance because we're violating that conditional use requirement by more than 10%. So each of those D variances have a little bit of different burden of proof with them. Starting with the D2, the prevailing case there governing D2 variances is the Burbridge case. And when Burbridge asks you to do as a board is to, when you're dealing with an expansion of a nonconforming use, right? The use is already there, so the area has gotten accustomed to it, but how can you make improvements to it to make it more integrated with the surroundings? As Vina pointed out earlier, this is a gateway project, right? And the sites, as you know from driving through it, is a little bit lacking with regard to the paving. So that creates 2 opportunities for us as an applicant to work with your professionals to provide some additional landscaping and to improve those access ways. So still a non-conforming site, but we're certainly taking the opportunity to integrate and make it better for its surroundings. So I think we certainly substantiate our burden of proof with respect to the D2. With regard to the D3, our proof is not to demonstrate that this site is particularly suitable, but under the Coventry Square case, it held that you have to demonstrate as the planner, as the applicant's team, that absent compliance with those conditional use standards, this still remains an appropriate location for the use. So Mr. Koonsman went through them, and I'll refresh your memory as to what they were, but it was for the front yard setback of 34.2 feet where 75 is required, and as he testified, that's to the ramp of Route 9, and we don't have access to Route 9. So I think he provided the reasoning for that. The minimum off-street parking, 139 spaces required where we're not meeting that. That would be a wild amount of parking. My office has done dozens amounts of these facilities all throughout the state. That would be literally a travesty to the environment to provide that much parking for this type of use. You just don't need it. Maximum lot coverage. I know we had some questions earlier as to the coverage. So restricted in the zone, we're allowed 30% for the conditional use requirements. Currently today, the site sits at 52.14, and we're providing 62.12. But most importantly, the testimony that Mr. Kunzman offered is a couple things that relate to that. Because as planners, right, we look at why do we regulate lot coverage? You want to make sure that the site isn't creating any excess adverse drainage impacts or runoff or putting too much intensity on the site. So some of the things that he testified as a planner that I thought were important was that he is introducing stormwater management onto the site. If you saw that he was proposing a basin up and along in the area where the billboard is. But he also told you that he's improving water quality and he's slowing the rate of runoff of the site. Now, he's a great engineer and he does these things, but the law actually requires he has to do these things as well. So certainly when you as a board are looking, is this still an appropriate location? And this is going to tie into the FAR as well. You can be comfortable that the site's going to accommodate that excess coverage with no detriment, right, or no substantial detriment. We'll wrap all this up at the end with the negative criteria because that's what we have to get to, is that no substantial detriment. So, and then the other two conditional use are the driveway requirements, that we don't meet the driveway requirements and we're not providing perimeter fencing. While we do have fencing on the site, we do have some areas that are unfenced. So absent compliance with those conditional use standards, I think the board can certainly be comfortable that this still is an appropriate location for this storage facility. Chair asked, is it going to look similar? And I think if I had to tell you from a planning point of view, I said it's going to look a little campus-like. It's going to look like you have two buildings that certainly look like they have a symmetry and are synergistic. So I think you're going to find it, if the board is so inclined to prove it, that it looks campus-like. So those are two of our D variances. The third one is the D4 for floor area ratio. So the prevailing case there is the Randolph v. Town Center case. And what Randolph asked us to talk about from a planning point of view is not that the site can handle all of the intensity that we're proposing, but can it handle the excess floor area that is being proposed by the applicant? And one of the compelling things I heard tonight, and I can't think of a whole lot of other cases where you can introduce an additional 72,000 square foot of floor area onto a project site and not increase the amount of employees. So I think when you're doing a floor area ratio case, a lot of times you could have a much smaller building and it would have much more of an impact, not only to the peak hour traffic, but to the parking demand, to the employee demand. So self-storage is a pretty sleepy use, and I think we can be comfortable that the site will handle the excess FAR. And then the last D variance is the D6 that we need for height. Now again, we are in the CR zone, which has a height of 65 feet and 5 stories as of right. So you could put a building here as of right, but it's that conditional use requirement that restricts us to 15 feet. Now the existing building on the site is 33.7 roughly feet. So not only would I think it would not look quite campus-like if we met the height requirement of the zone, it would look very different than what's out there today. So Grasso is our case when we're dealing with height variances, right? The Grasso says when you're dealing with a height variance, what you want to avoid is allowing for a structure to be there that's completely out of character or with the landscape, that changes the landscape than what's existing today. And I think that certainly when you look at what's on the ground today and what's in the area, and certainly what's contemplated as of right by the underlying zoning, you can be confident that we meet our burden of proof with respect to the D6 variance for height. So in addition to those D variances, we are asking for a number of C variances, and Mr. Kunzman did go over them, and we're certainly asking for the C variance for the facade signage on our southern elevation. So just again, so the record is clear, the C variances that we're requesting are for the buffer area along the arterial frontage, the residential buffer, we are not meeting that, that's an existing condition, the loading space sizes, the landscape area ratio, and then again, the signage. So that's the variance relief that we're asking for the bulks. Now, the board can grant C variances under 2 criteria. You can grant variances under the C1 statutory criteria. And that criteria relates to a unique shape or size of a piece of property or the lawful existing structures thereon. So I think the C1 and C2 are applicable here. This is an irregular, it's almost like a flag lot where it's got that little gore of land that goes out and touches the access ramp to Route 9, and then it widens back up into a somewhat large and irregular shape that doesn't have any access to Route 9, direct access anyway. So, and it's got existing structures on it, right, which that's the third hardship. And these are not unique to Old Bridge Township. Vina and I didn't come up with them in our decades of planning. It's right out of the land use law statute, 40:55, deed that talks about unique features on a piece of property or the lawful existing structures that are thereon. Those are the mechanisms for hardship. So even if you weren't convinced and you didn't agree with me that you think this site is applicable for hardship, you can still grant the bulk variances if you find that one or more purposes of the land use law would be advanced. And I'm going to talk about them globally because there is a case called the Pullen v. South Plainfield case that says when you're evaluating these cases, right, we don't have to cherry pick them out and we'll go one by one. We can evaluate them all in a totality and look at the application and the benefits and issues with it derived totally, because that's what we do. We want to not just look at one isolated aspect of it. So I think that we advance criteria G, which talks about providing sufficient space in a variety of locations for a variety of uses. This is a really permissive zoning district. When you look at what's allowable in the CR zone, I looked at 164 separate and distinct uses that are here, allowable as of right. When you look at that, I think, and the fact that there's an existing storage facility here, particularly, I think you could rely on criteria G. I agree with you. I think that this is an attractive building, which allows us to rely on criteria I, a desirable visual environment. Also, I think allowing, if the applicant accepts a condition of approval, as they indicated they would earlier, to increase the landscaping, I think that that also allows us to rely on criteria I, which will allow us to increase the curb appeal of the site. And then, of course, right, you would be remiss if you didn't testify to criteria H, which talks about the free flow of traffic on a self-storage facility, because I think collectively all of our professionals agreed you're just not going to have a huge impact on traffic. And then the last one, I think, is criteria M, an efficient use of the land. Your master plan, which was last looked at in 2022, actually encourages you to look at those sites and those opportunities in existing commercial areas that can support additional commercial growth and development. So I think that this site certainly does that, which then gets us into the negative criteria. And that's what I like to wrap up as a planner, because the land use law does not ask you, in order to grant these variances, that you hold us or any other applicant to a standard that there be no detriment. The standard is that the benefits of the grant of the variance outweigh any detriments, and that it's done so with no substantial detriment to the impact on the public good or the zone plan. And here, the stated purpose of the CR zone is to establish at several locations within the township within which major shopping centers are permitted, providing the full array of retail and service uses designed to serve all residents of the township as well as the regional population. So this, to me, is a service use designed to serve all the residents of the township as well as a regional population. So I think we are quite well aligned with the envision in the master plan as well as the stated purpose of the CR zone. So statutorily, I believe we meet our burden of proof for all of the 4D variances, which we discussed and are identified in your planner's review letter. It's unusual, I have to say, I haven't had a lot of cases in my 28 years where I've had to put on testimony for all 4 variances, all 4 Ds, but I think here it was appropriate, and I agree with your planner. So we've addressed all the Ds, and I think we certainly meet our statutory burden of proof for the grant of the D as well as C variances in conjunction with this application, and will have no substantial detriment to the zone plan or the public good if the board were to move favorably on this application. If I left any out, go back over.
You got 'em.
I think we got them all.
You did that in 14 minutes. I timed you.
Yeah, it would have been 17 if we had a
9:25 you started.
I know.
And that's,
I
you
knew
almost
I could
covered
get
all
away
the
with it.
Ds. Almost.
I almost got rid of all of them.
You could
right?
throw another one in if you want. You still got a couple minutes. I'm going to start then with Ms. Sawan.
So I don't have any questions for Chris, but something that I would want to share with the board, and I did share with the applicant when I first met them at a pre-application meeting, right? So there are some people who attend the council meetings have heard me say this before, but this area is special to me. It's my baby because I have been pursuing transit village designation for this area because the Old Bridge commuter parking lot has the highest ridership on the bus in the state of New Jersey, that route. And so I have been working with NJDOT, NJ Transit. Unfortunately, when I started with the pre-application meeting, COVID hit and nobody was taking the buses or traveling to the city. Things slowed down, but I am back on track. The NJ Transit last year received a federal grant to develop a bus rapid transit system along Route 9, and Old Bridge is the last stop or the first stop, which way, depends on which way you go for the bus rapid, and they too are supportive of a transit village or TOD type of developments. What that means is at some point, if we do apply for the designation, there will be an area investigation that will be conducted for this area. After the area investigation is conducted, just like you see in the redevelopment planning process, the same process follows, and a redevelopment plan will be written for the area. Generally, with transit village designations, you have higher FARs, higher densities, more impervious coverage because you want compact design. Now, talking about, so that's the future. It's still not been adopted, it's work in progress, but at some point, and just to keep that vision in mind, I think this use is quite apt because when you, if you notice, the existing use is successful, and that's why they're back to expand it, because it's closer to apartments, it's closer to homes where people need more storage space. When you are going to develop a transit village designation where there might be, there will be more residential kind of development, mixed use, commercial and residential, there will be a need for more storage space. So I think the timing is right in that sense. If you look at other applications that were heard by this board for the CR zone, whether it's the Gateway Shopping Center or the other side of the highway, most of them went through the FAR, the lot coverage. You will see very little. In fact, this is the only property that has so much landscaped area compared to the other properties in the CR. So those are the things that you have to keep in mind when evaluating a project. So although there are variances sought, and you see a bunch of them, some of them are consistent. What is being asked is consistent with what exists in the CR zone currently, and that should be your basis for evaluating it too. And I lost my train of thought. There was one more thing I wanted to say, and I lost it. But I can take any questions, actually.
So what would it be your advice to the board that in Ms. Cafone's findings that she's put on the record, that she's finding with all the Ds, that she's satisfied those requirements, and then as to the bulks, she's also satisfied?
That is correct.
It is correct.
That is correct.
That's your professional opinion as well?
That is correct.
Thank you.
I usually, and what you will notice is when I write my memos, I usually put in the proofs that are required. That's, it helps the planner come and testify and hit all those points, but at the same time, it's more importantly, it's for the board so that they can evaluate based on the testimony that is provided.
Thank you. As to the other professionals, any comment?
No additional comments.
No additional comments.
Thank you. Counselor?
No additional comments.
All right. Let me go down here and see if anybody wants to bring something up. Mr. Victoria?
No questions or comments.
Mr. Rizzo? Mr. Stoner? Mr. Scogno? Ms. Chevalier? And Ms. Andrews? Okay. We know at this point we're not going to take any vote because, you have no further
So, yeah,
testimony, do you?
we do not have any further testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Cafone.
And I guess I would just, if we might just revisit that concept for a moment, Chairman, just while we're talking about it. We are going to have a transcript just as if a court reporter was here. So is there any reason the board couldn't go to a vote this evening?
That we know we're not going to do.
Okay, no, that's fair.
No.
Free to
Well, I had
ask.
to ask.
I can't do that.
No, it's, but,
In clear conscience, I can't do that.
no, it's
I'd like
fine.
to, but-
I just thought I would ask. I was kind of thinking about it during.
Would you be coming back with any further testimony?
So our expectation is not to come back with any further testimony. We'll have a transcript prepared, and I probably wouldn't be bringing back all witnesses.
Then I want to do something then.
Yes.
Then I want to ask any board members as to each and every witness if they have anything that they'd like to question tonight, if you're not going to bring them back.
That would be terrific.
So I believe we started with,
Mr. Kunzman?
yes. Mr. Kunzman, as to Mr. Kunzman, when he testified as professional engineer, any questions that you can think of? Any problems that you might have had? You can just raise your hand if you, none? Okay.
Mr. Going?
Mr. Going,
Traffic?
when he spoke about the traffic issues? None? Okay. Mr. Bensavenga, the architect? He gave a nice presentation, too. He really walked us around the building there. I like that. And finally, Ms. Caffone. Any questions while she's still here? Okay. Well, I think the board has said that they would not have any further questions. That doesn't mean anything in and of itself.
No, we understand. And if anything, and if anybody were to have anything, as long as messaging can get to me before we come back. And I guess what I would envision is, I won't bother doing a closing statement now, perhaps.
Why don't you do that at the next,
We'll do that at the next meeting.
I think it'd be a good refresher.
Yep,
If you can just hit on the high points, make sure everybody remembers anything.
yep. I'll do a summary. And
Yep. If you
It'll
do
be
a
short.
summary, or make it just a closing statement, I will not open up a public portion, but I
That's-
will open up one tonight, obviously.
Yep, understood.
Is that, Mr. Cheney, you think?
Yeah, just one so real quick. So, March 7th?
Would you be able to get the transcripts by then?
I'm certain of it.
March 7th.
Perfect.
Good on you, okay.
All right, Mr. Cascala, let me just go to the public. There's not anybody here, but I certainly have to offer that. This is 52-2023Z, Extra Space Management. The physical location is 1001 US Highway 9, Old Bridge, for expansion of a self-storage facility. Does anyone here in the courtroom wish to be heard? For the record, the only people here are professionals that came as part of the application. I'll close the public portion. We do have a date, that would be March 7th. Anything else? Obviously, no further notice. You'll come and you'll make a closing statement on that evening, and we'll,
Correct.
if there's anything that comes up with the transcript in between, obviously, there'd be conversation that the professionals would
We'll have
have.
conversation and
Right.
just let me know. That
Okay.
it's, email or reach out.
Thank you and all your professionals for your presentation.
We appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for hanging in there. And, well, we beat the
And
10
and
o'clock.
you still beat the clock, too, so. Thanks, everyone.
There you go.
Board members, that brings us to public portion comments, and there are none tonight. We've already established that. Any board member have anything that they need to speak to Ms. Swan about? Mr. Cheney? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Board, I
Thanks again.
have a request. I have a request. So we have a meeting, a zoning board meeting scheduled in the first week of April. I believe it is 5th April, right? Is that what it is? Can you check? I think it is 5th.
You didn't tell me you were bringing this up tonight.
April is
April 4th?
4 and 18, yeah.
Okay, so that is the meeting of spring break. Most of the professionals are away, including me. So I had a request if we could move that April 4th date to the following week. We could do it on April 8th, which is a Monday. The reason I don't want to cancel the meeting is we are really backed up. Zoning board is very busy. I am already booking and assigning dates into May. And in fact, I gave the May date, so now I'm in June already. So I don't want to cancel, but if we can just have a meeting, instead of the 4th, if we could have it 8th on Monday, that would be really helpful. Maureen will reach out to the board via email. If you could please confirm your availability, it would help.
Instead of the 4th, Thursday the 4th, we'd move it to the Monday night. Would we conflict with any other meeting that might be going on?
I don't believe so, because usually council is Tuesday night
right.
and planning board is Thursday night, Wednesdays is court. I will make sure with, Jacob, I might need your help to find out if there's anything else on April 8th, but I don't believe so.
Okay, well,
So you should be hearing back from planning office in a day or two regarding moving of that date, because please confirm as soon as you can so that I can send out a notice. Since the date is changed, I will have to send out a notice in the newspaper.
fine by me. Anybody have an objection? No? Okay. Let's hope we can pull that off then.
I'm going to post.
Anything else? I didn't know, look. Anybody want to bring anything up? No? No? Mr. Cheney, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
And, yeah, we welcome you, that's okay. If there's nothing else, someone make a movement, make a motion for, did you want to bring something up, Roseanne? Did you want to bring something up? Go ahead.
Valentine's Day.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh, that's nice, very nice.
Valentine's Day.
All righty. Someone make a motion for an adjournment?
Chevalier will make a motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Well, we stand adjourned.